fabulous science consultant. I am going to share my screen. Okay, can you see that okay? All right,
Yes, we're good to
perfect.
go.
Perfect, thank you. So I am the baby of the group. I just joined the Science in Literacy Integration Collaboration just this year, and I am going to have Wendi share a little bit of the history of SLIC before we get into what we have planned for you today.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you and some familiar faces that this may be a little bit of not new information for you, but glad to share it with those who it is new. We have, I don't know, probably 6 years ago now, we were very concerned about the lack of science being taught at the elementary level. And we knew Cindy and Amy's work, their slip work, and we thought, I wonder what we could do to change things up a bit and sort of encourage science being taught at early grade levels. So we got together 3 science consultants and 3 early literacy coaches. We did about 6 months of learning together first before we started whatever it was to become. And I learned a lot about early literacy practices, and the early lit folks learned a lot about science practices and how we do things, and kind of had to work that out a little bit. And so once we did, we came up with a model that we'll kind of explain as we go through, but basically we support elementary instructional coaches or early literacy coaches in supporting K-5 teachers in implementing one science unit where they forward the literacy during that unit. And we'll talk more about what those areas are, but that was our way of saying, let's give this a try. We were supported by the MySTEM network with some funding to launch it. And then MESA, excuse me, welcomed us into their fold as well. So we're not going to spend too much time on our model today. However, we do have complete facilitator guides that are available if you're interested. But what we want to do today is think about, where are you in your county as a consultant or a coach? And what seeds might you plant or think about planting so that we can forward science and social studies? Because I'm excited to get started with Mark supporting the social studies side as well. So I will pass it back on to Sonali, and feel free to ask us questions in the chat or along the way.
Here's our agenda for today. Thank you, Wendi, for the history. She said, we're going to dive into how you might elevate science instruction within your setting. You will have some time to look at some of the research and an opportunity to network and collaborate as you are building your science story. We hope that we inspire and empower you today during our presentation to really think about how to elevate science instruction and what might be happening in your settings in terms of science instruction. And we also hope that you get to hear what other people are doing in their areas that you might then use in your area. So we would like to share a read aloud, and it's called Just One Seed. One moment, please. Okay, here it comes. Just one seed.
So Sonali,
I don't have any.
Oh,
I don't have any sound.
Hmm.
When you share it, there's a little
Mhm. Yep,
Okay.
I can do it if you want, it's all ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
Yep. You'll just have to stop sharing here.
Yeah, yeah.
Just One Seed by Alma Florata. Translated by Shirley Ann Costigan. Illustrated by Jing Thong. Just one seed. A seed is a gift wrapped in a shell. Plant it, water it, care for it well. I will, said Miguel. That little seed might grow a weed, said Dad. Wait and see, said Miguel. And he planted the seed. I really doubt that your one little sprout will grow, said Mom. Wait and see, said Miguel, and he watered the sprout. Good grief! What's so important about one little leaf? Asked his brother. Wait and see, said Miguel, and he pulled up a weed. What do you expect from one little plant? Can you answer that? I really can't, said his sister. Wait and see, said Miguel, and he raked the soil. Every day, Miguel weeded, watered, and waited. Until one day he said, my plant has no flowers, and I've waited so long. Tell me, little bird, have I done something wrong? Wait and see, said the bird. Then, with the bird's help, the plant grew taller. And taller. And taller than tall until, wow! Out popped a sunflower. And that's not all.
This brilliant trick will keep your home.
So as you watched that video and considered the life cycle of the plant, we would like you to consider, where are you at in the life cycle of science for all students? We are going to transition now to an activity for you to help you consider where you are at in your life cycle and the story that you're going to create about science instruction in your setting. Wendy, you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you. You will find in the chat the a mind map that you can make a copy of, and it's also in your participant agenda. And that will allow some slides to be copied, just 2 slides. And that mind map is for you to edit and take notes on today if you would like. If you would prefer to do that on paper, that's just fine. But you are going to need to do a little bit of writing and think about what your current state is for your science story. We're going to do an activity where you will pull out some keywords and do a summary sentence. And then we'll have a learning burst where you'll do some most important points and then think about some tools for advocacy as you read. So that is what that map is for. And on the back of that, we will have thank you, Sonali. We will have a conversation in pairs thinking about what you might do next. So make a copy of that, see if you can write or put on there, or think about how you might take a few notes on a piece of paper somewhere at wherever you are working right now. All right, any questions or any trouble with the mind map? There is a printable copy if you like it in the participant agenda as well, if you want to steal it and do something different with it. Okay, so the first, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody else sees this, but the first slide has a big exclamation mark with a triangle. Am I the only one that sees that?
No, when I opened it initially, it showed, and then it switched to image not available.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, we will work on that. I don't know what's going on. It was a forced copy, but we will figure that out in just a minute. We'll, for the sake of time, I'm going to move forward, but I will work on seeing if we can get that taken care of in a second. So right now, what we'd like you to do is think about your story in your county. What are your students experiencing? What do you think that K-5, especially that K-3 group, is experiencing in science instruction? Do you feel like you're in the germinating seed, sprout, seedling, young plant, young adult plant? Where are your K-3 to K-5 folks sitting right now with your students? Are they experiencing 3 units of science, 1 unit of science, and almost no science, just some read alouds that go along with science? If you're willing to share, be a little vulnerable in the chat, feel free to share kind of where you're at: seed, germinated, sprout, adult, young. There's no judgment here. We know the statistics, so we're not judging at all. Thanks for sharing, Ashley. Sounds like you have a high quality resource and they're working really hard at it. Open Sci is brand new in that elementary land, so that's a high undertaking, but good for you. All right. Okay. Sonali, if you can move forward, we're going to think a little, exciting. Chandra, nice thinking about a brand new teacher. Nice germinating. Hey, let's start germinating those seeds. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Okay. The state of Michigan really truly is in overall this, if you're not familiar, this is from Tanya Wright's book, her vocabulary book, and they did a small study in a large Midwestern state. Guess which state that was, you guys? It was us, right? And so probably you have seen this graph before, but on average, instructional time for science is about 2.3 minutes of time in a kinder class with that study from Dr. Wright. And nationwide, K through 3 gets about 30% of our students nationwide get 2 to 3 days of 18 minutes or less of science instruction, which means 70% of our kids are not getting even that much. So it's really unfortunate. And we know that science and social studies support literacy. And if we talk about social studies, look how sad that is to go down to social studies on that graph too. It's the 1.19 minutes. So that's even worse. So I'll give you a second. So our slick story, our mission is really to close that achievement gap by bringing the best practices of science and the best practices of literacy together while advocating for increased time for elementary students to engage in science. And our vision is that all students continue to build a more sophisticated understanding of the natural world and the human design to ultimately become scientifically literate adults. The more experiences they have, we know they will also become better in that literacy world as well. So that's kind of our story. I'm gonna pass it back to Sonali so she can share a little bit about how we grounded ourselves in the essentials.
Thank you, Wendy. So Wendy shared some of the research for the reasoning behind why we really need to have science instruction happening within all of our classrooms. And when we look back to the essentials, we're going to start at the coaching essentials, the practices, in particular, number 7. And if you look at the screen, the two bullets that have been highlighted are bullets number 4 and number 6. So, number 4 says working with administrators and other teachers to establish a school wide literacy vision and to develop and refine and manage the school's literacy program. So, as a literacy coach or as a literacy consultant, you are really thinking about your district's vision for literacy, and that should include science too. Bullet number 6 says serving as a liaison between the district and their schools by attending district level meetings or workshops and sharing the information with the appropriate stakeholders, such as administrators, teachers, and support personnel. So when we stay grounded in the coaching essentials, and now we look at our literacy essentials, and this is the K3 version. When we look at the second page, so if you're looking at your essentials, it would be page 40. We have the enabling conditions, the robust resources, and then there's a paragraph underneath that called literacy practices. Let's look at the enabling conditions first. And the sentence that I want to uplift for you is highlighted on your screen, where it says, use of the essential instructional practices in early literacy should occur in a school day that is supportive and effective for children, not only in literacy, but in all areas of development. So we need to really be thinking about how to build students' general knowledge about everything. When we look at the robust resources, the sentence I'd like to uplift for you is, districts and other educational organizations, in consultation with educators and other experts, should provide, at minimum, curriculum materials that address literacy development, science, social studies, and mathematics, and that include abundant materials for young children to read. So children should be reading about content area specific knowledge and then building their literacy skills along the way. And then lastly, the last sentence I'd like to highlight for you is within that bottom paragraph under the title Essential Practices. At the same time, literacy instruction should not take the place of science, social studies, or other curricular areas, nor of addressing standards in all other areas. That approach is counterproductive because later academic achievement is predicted not only by literacy knowledge and skills, but also by mathematics learning, knowledge of the natural and social world, and certain aspects of physical, social, and emotional development. So we have the research showing that not enough science instruction is happening or social studies, and it is also housed within our essentials that those things do need to happen. So thinking about the coaching practices and thinking about the essentials, I'd like you to dive into those documents and pick 2 or 3 words or phrases that are lifting up for you. And then we're going to put you in a breakout room where you will share what your 2 or 3 words that you chose, and then collectively come up with a sentence that combines the words that everyone chose within your group. Who may have a question about what we're going to do next? All right, so think of 2 or 3 words that are resonating with you, and then we'll put you in breakout rooms very shortly.
It does look like the, whoever fixed the slide deck, thank you. We're not sure if it was magically fixed. But it does work now. So if you wanted to make yourself a copy, you are more than welcome to do that for note taking.
Thank you, Ashley.
Ashley for the win today. And we're just waiting on Mark for the breakout.
All right, Mark, I think we are ready to be put into breakouts now.
All right, the rooms are being opened. You just might have to go down and select the breakout room option. Otherwise, it should pop up and ask you to join.
Wendy, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I noticed your cursor was where I was taking notes in the agenda. Did you not want those notes there?
No, the notes were fine, but we have a participant agenda, which has all the links in there.
Okay,
So I didn't want you to have to type all of that
got it.
when we had it all ready to go.
Got it. Perfect. So you
Um,
just linked that there instead.
Yeah, so I just linked the participant agenda and I took your notes away, but I thought you
No,
don't
that's
have to
okay. I just was
continue
like,
to
oh,
do
where
that.
did they go? So,
No,
okay.
I just didn't. I was like, we have all of the links in there. So,
Okay,
yep, sorry about
perfect.
that. I should have
Thank you.
messaged you.
No,
Then it
thanks
was
for,
just saving you time for having to do something more.
yep, that's great. Thanks.
Carrie, do you want to pause the recording?
All right, welcome back. I am wondering if we could have a couple people share the sentence that you created using your words or phrases. And as you are typing in your responses, I'm going to ask you to think about how you might use that statement as part of your toolkit to advocate for science instruction. Any volunteers?
I can share from our group. Our group, I can't remember exactly what our sentence was, but our key phrases were effective, supportive, and that our role wasn't just around supporting literacy, it was around supporting all areas of quality, effective instruction. We talked about in our counties that there was an array of, who was teaching science, who wasn't teaching science, do they have resources, do they not have resources? But I could see, using the highlighted sections that you've kind of brought forward this morning around starting those discussions, especially with our literacy coaches, and how we might support and encourage some of those conversations within districts, how we might support those conversations at the county level, to start thinking about, especially in Lower L, how we could weave in some more science instruction, because we know that some of our districts simply are just not teaching science. So
Thank
that's
you
just
for
kind of what we
sharing
talked
that.
about in our breakout group.
I appreciate the lens that you're bringing, that you're looking at not just administrators and, but you're really considering all the shareholders that are invested, that like all the touch points, that all the people that work with all the different kids, really considering what conversations you might have with all of those people so that we are ensuring all students are getting science instruction, social studies. I'm going to also say social studies, even though today is focused on science, but we really need to have that content area. There is a podcast coming out with Mark Raffler and Sarah Shoemaker through LLCN. The featured guest is Kelly Gallagher, and he wrote a book called In Order to Read Stuff, You Have to Know Stuff. So it really connects to the content that we're talking about today. So look forward to that podcast coming soon. Thank you for those that added comments in the chat. I'm really seeing words like opportunities, abundant materials, creating that school-wide visions for all students, so that they can read, write, listen, and speak across any content area. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. And now we are going to move into, I'm going to pass it to Wendi, and we are going to move into implementation.
I just put this in sort of at the last minute, but I mean, you guys are consultants and coaches, but your job is to support in the implementation of curricular resources, assessment, instruction, those types of things. And so I just wanted to kind of take you up just a notch from that umbrella view, because a lot of times what happens in literacy is a lot of these implementation drivers, such as on the left, coaching, training, and selection of resources, they occur very, very systematically in literacy. Very often leadership is on board with it because it's a highly accountable subject, right? So, and then on the right-hand side, you will see on that triangle, you will see that, very often you will think about systems interventions, tier 2, tier 3 instruction and literacy. You'll have administration thinking about facilitating how that's going to work. And you'll have a data system and decision support system all in place. I want you to know that if any one of those things doesn't happen or becomes a zero, implementation is almost 0 too. Well, it is 0, actually. It's 0 times 0 times 0. So some of you probably recognize this from the SPE micro cred stuff from it's associated with NERN. So I want you to know that in science instruction in K-5, that I can promise you that there is very little thought about selection. There's very little training involved with our teachers unless somebody is supporting that and they've made it, the leadership has decided that it's going to happen. There's very little coaching around science at all. We don't have science coaches in districts. And there are no tier 2, tier 3 pieces in science. And so you get to the point where you think about implementing those K-3 units and it looks a little bleak. But I give this to you because I think there's hope, right? With this group is like, what can we do? What parts of this triangle can you support as a consultant or a coach within your county or in your district? So I just want you to kind of think about that, because a lot of times science is, I'm going to buy you this and good luck. And we may not even buy the kit for the teachers. So what are those things that we need to do to support so that we can make teachers successful? That's, so I just wanted to sort of bring that to your attention, like where we need to think more systematically about implementing science instruction K-5. All right, I'm going to move forward and not think too high, too long. And we're going to give you some time to to do some reading and research. So we like to ground you in research. We're not always sure what you need. So we have a learning choice board, and so can you click on the choice board so we can show how that might work a minute? And it's a Canva, and every picture you see is linkable. So whatever moves you today, I'm sorry, I have a cold. Whatever moves you today to want to dig into a little bit more, feel free to do so. We have some supporting and coaching systems on page 1. Going to page 2, we have some unpacking units and some of our slick work. There's a Wakelet with lots of resources in it too, instructional schedules at the elementary level. And then some managing of materials, background knowledge, and confidence for teachers, just things that we've noticed that need to be implemented very intentionally, and ways that districts have done that. So we're going to give you, let's see, we're only going to give you about 15 minutes, which isn't enough time, we know, but to dig into that Canva, so feel free to turn your cameras off. We'll give you about 15 minutes, and feel free to dig into a resource and start reading as you would like. We'll see you back here at 10:05. If you had the opportunity to get a copy of the mind map slide deck, working, or if you have your own set of notes, either one, there is a section on the mind map where it has most important points. So Mark's getting us some breakouts ready. And so what the MIPs or most important points that you engaged with in some of your reading, we'd like you to just do a quick whip around in your breakouts so you can share what you learned today. So whenever, Mark, you're ready, we'll go back to those groups and you guys can share that most important point for your learning.
Okay, they should be open.
Thanks, Mark. Did we all come back from the ether here?
They're back.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm looking. Okay. Hopefully you found some of those resources helpful when you think about advocating for elementary science. We're going to skip the spokesperson sharing the elevator speech, please, and just get to thinking back to our beginning where we just start with one seed. It just takes one conversation or one approaching one person saying, can we do something? The question is who do you ask that question? Where do you plant the seed? And so that's where we want to kind of go to next. Go ahead, Sonali. What we're gonna do here, and I don't remember. Oh, this is you, Sonali. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you, Wendi. Just before we get into the next step that you might take, I want you all to know that I included an extra resource that was not in the choice board that you just dove into. It's an article that recently came out, found in the Reading Teacher, and it's called Better Together, Integrating Content Area Curriculum in the Primary Literacy Classroom. And I linked it in the participant agenda that is shared in today's agenda. I thought it's very relevant and it's very timely. It just came out probably within the last week. And so if you have a moment, you might want to dive into that resource as well. It gives some examples of what a first grade teacher has done in integrating science. And I think she also did a unit in social studies. So you can see both content areas and how she integrated literacy within both of those areas. So when you think about planting that one seed and thinking about what step you might take next, it could be a conversation. And so in the participant agenda, there are some coaching protocols that you might use. And when you think about the story that you want to tell about science instruction, think about your present state, and now think about your desired state. What do you want science instruction to look like? And as you're considering that, think about who might you need to talk to make that desired state become a reality. What story do you want to tell about science instruction that is happening in your district? That is one step, is having that conversation and think about who you might talk to. As you're considering that, we would like to share the SLIC story. So for the collaborative, we have 4 literacy focus areas that we have built into the program. And first we dove into the literacy essentials, and we also then dove into the science and engineering practices, and we found many connections between those 2 documents. The 4 literacy areas that were lifted up out of the essentials were text sets, writing, vocabulary, and interactive read-alouds. Districts then chose one of those 4 areas to embed within a science unit of their choice. The model that we use then is that we have several touch points throughout the year where we have some shared learning that we're doing together and time to network so that people across different districts can see how science is unfolding in those areas and what they might then use in their own setting. Alongside those touch points, there are district literacy coaches that are supporting their own teachers through coaching cycles. So they are meeting with teachers, planning, modeling, finding resources if needed. And then Wendi and I are there also to help with that support in terms of the co-planning or modeling or whatever it is that they might need. So this is just one way that we are using to really address the need for science instruction to happen K-5. So we are coming to the end of our presentation. We have thrown a lot at you. So there are the essentials, there's the research, there's the implementation to consider, there's the coaching conversations to consider. And in the chat, we'd like to ask you to put in, what is an OMG moment that you're having right now? What is a moment that you're really, that's really resonating with you? And please share it in the chat. I'm seeing responses coming in. Yes, science and social studies matter. Yes, thinking about the system, what might need to be adjusted in the system in order for both of those things to happen. Keeping parents in the loop. Yes, definitely. They are part of the shareholder group that we were talking about earlier. Having parents stay connected to what's happening in school, definitely. Definitely. Kids love science. If anything, all the hands-on experiences that they get to do, that's what that resonates with them. That's what stays with them. That's what they remember. So the more we can do that, the more engaged they'll be too with school, and they'll want to come to school. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. Yes, Tracy, definitely. What happens in elementary definitely sets the foundation for the later grades that come. And that is actually part of the conversation that Mark and Sarah have in the LLCN podcast with Kelly Gallagher about by the time kids get to middle school and high school, those teachers are expecting a certain level of understanding to already be in place. And then when they realize it's not there, they are then having to spend time filling in those gaps before they can teach the content that they are wanting to teach. So it becomes this vicious cycle. So yes, thank you. We have to lay that foundation in the early grades for sure. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Thank you for your graciousness as we struggle with the little technology issues in the beginning. Thank you so much for the conversations that you had in your breakout groups. And Wendi and I are here. If you would like to talk to us further or pick our brains, please reach out.
Thank you guys so much for having us. I wanted to just reiterate that. Thank you. I also want to mention there are so few science consultants in the state that we really need you to be an advocate along with us. So think about if you have any questions along the way, let us know. Appreciate the time and energy and the invitation to the space. So thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for having us.
Well, you see a lot of thank yous in the chat. Thank you, Wendi and Sonali, for leading us in that learning. Representing our SLIC team, science and literacy. When you pushed us to think about our next step, the one seed that we like to plant, I was reminded of the African proverb that says that you can count how many seeds that are in an apple, but you'll never be able to count how many apples come from one seed. So your seed matters. Whatever you do today and you take from this learning and apply, it's going to grow. So thank you so much for what you've contributed this morning. We are going to move along on our agenda, and we have representation from MAISA. Stephanie O'Day is here to provide some updates